a faith-based film that I was passionate about multiplied so tremendously. Unexpected, completely unpredictable shattering of a crowdfund record. And it led us to this show, The Chosen.
A film crew in Texas thought they were ready. They'd rehearsed, prayed, prepared for months. But when cameras rolled on The Chosen's crucifixion scene, something unexpected happened. Seasoned professionals who'd worked on dozens of productions suddenly couldn't function.
Jenkins, who created The Chosen, and I had played Jesus for him for his church's Good Friday service.
The director had to stop filming multiple times. Jonathan Roumie, playing Jesus, experienced something he still struggles to explain. What turned a planned television scene into an event that left everyone questioning what they'd just witnessed? The answer reveals why this moment changed lives far beyond the set. The sacred ground, where heaven touched earth. The Chosen is filmed at a location outside Dallas, Texas, that has been carefully transformed into a first-century Middle Eastern village. The set is known for its attention to detail, from the architecture to the landscape, and many cast and crew members have said that walking through it feels like stepping back in time. Beyond the physical realism, people who work there often mention a presence that is difficult to explain in practical terms. It is something they notice almost immediately and continue to feel throughout production. Director Dallas Jenkins has spoken about how the location seems to carry a spiritual weight, especially during important scenes. He has explained that it goes beyond the buildings, costumes, or props and settles into the atmosphere itself. Crew members have described working there as feeling similar to standing on sacred ground. Several have said it is the most spiritually significant experience they have had in their professional lives, not something they expected when joining a television production. When it came time to film The Crucifixion, the production team built a hill outside the city walls and erected 3 crosses against the Texas sky, following biblical descriptions. The seriousness of what they were about to portray was felt long before filming began. The night before, several cast members gathered to pray, including Jonathan Roumie, who was visibly carrying the emotional weight of the scene ahead. He understood that the next day would demand more than skill or preparation, and that it would require him to fully open himself to the experience. The man behind the face, Jonathan Roumie's journey. Jonathan Roumie's journey to playing Jesus Christ was shaped by years of struggle, uncertainty, and personal growth. Before The Chosen, he worked primarily as a voice actor and appeared in small roles across television and film, often struggling to make a stable living. There were long periods when work was scarce and finances were tight, leading him to question whether continuing in acting was realistic. Roumie has spoken openly about those years, describing moments of doubt and discouragement that tested both his career and his sense of purpose. Raised in a Catholic household with Egyptian and Irish roots, Roumie's faith was always an important part of his life, though not without difficulty. He has described his relationship with God as uneven, marked by periods of closeness and distance. During his 20s and early 30s, he faced personal struggles, including addiction and a feeling of being directionless. By the time The Chosen entered his life, he was intentionally working to strengthen his faith and align his work with his beliefs, making the timing of the role especially significant. When Roumie auditioned for The Chosen, he has said the experience felt different from any other audition he had done. He sensed something meaningful happening in the room, beyond a strong performance. Dallas Jenkins later confirmed that Roumie stood out immediately, not only because of his acting ability, but because of a quiet strength and sincerity he brought with him. Roumie approaches the role with great seriousness, praying before scenes and reflecting on the responsibility of portraying Jesus to a global audience. Still, despite careful preparation and deep study, nothing fully prepared him for filming The Crucifixion, where the emotional and spiritual weight of the role went far beyond anything he had previously experienced. The day everything changed, filming The Crucifixion. The morning of the Crucifixion shoot began in unusual stillness. Crew members spoke quietly, humor was absent, and even routine technical discussions carried weight. Jonathan Roumie arrived early, praying and visibly moved, while the makeup team carefully applied realistic wounds and prosthetics. Director Jenkins reminded everyone of the scene's emotional gravity and encouraged those who needed breaks to step away. Once filming began, Roumie shifted from acting to fully experiencing the suffering he portrayed, and as he spoke Jesus' final words, tears flowed naturally. What was intended as a performance became a deeply shared encounter, leaving the cast and crew profoundly moved. Elizabeth Tabish, who plays Mary Magdalene, described being completely immersed in grief, focusing entirely on the human suffering before her rather than technical details. Extras, many longtime fans, were also deeply affected, later sharing how the scene brought them to tears. Jenkins called it the most challenging day of his career, often pausing due to his own emotions. Chaplains and counselors were available to support the team, and Roumie needed time to recover physically and spiritually. The Crucifixion filming left an indelible mark, blending emotional, spiritual, and artistic intensity that resonated with everyone present. The unexpected moments of light. Interestingly, filming the Crucifixion wasn't entirely consumed by darkness and grief. Jonathan Roumie has shared that between takes, moments of lightness helped the cast and crew cope with the intensity. Gentle humor, small jokes, and subtle reminders of hope punctuated the heavy emotional work, offering brief but meaningful relief. These moments weren't disrespectful. They reflected the truth about Jesus himself, who brought joy and light even into dark circumstances. The Chosen has consistently portrayed Jesus as fully human, showing him laughing, joking with his disciples, and enjoying the simple pleasures of friendship and community. This makes the contrast of his suffering even more poignant. The same man who smiles, teases, and celebrates is enduring unimaginable pain. That juxtaposition is both theologically significant and emotionally shattering, highlighting the depth of his sacrifice while reinforcing his humanity. Director Jenkins has spoken about his goal to show both the humanity and divinity of Jesus. He argues that too often, portrayals of Christ emphasize divinity at the expense of real human experience. The Chosen deliberately shows Jesus as tired, hungry, frustrated, joyful, fully engaged in life, so that his willing acceptance of suffering becomes even more profound. Between takes, Roumie would offer small smiles or reassuring glances to the cast, subtle gestures that reminded everyone of the story's purpose and helped prevent the day from becoming overwhelming. This delicate balance between honoring the gravity of the moment and maintaining emotional equilibrium reflects a deeper theological truth. The Crucifixion, while devastating, is not the end. It is followed by resurrection, triumph over death, and hope restored. Even while depicting profound suffering, the cast and crew carried the knowledge that sorrow was temporary, providing perspective, comfort, and a quiet sense of hope amid the weight of the scene. The sacred silence that followed. After the crucifixion scenes were completed, something extraordinary unfolded that Jenkins has called one of the most moving experiences of his career. Instead of the usual wrap-up chaos, the cast and crew lingered, drawn together by an unspoken impulse. Without planning or prompting, someone suggested they share communion. There, on the very set where they had just depicted the death of Jesus, they broke bread together. The silence during that moment was profound. No words of explanation were needed, no formal liturgy recited, no denominational structure imposed. Catholics, Protestants, Orthodox Christians, and people from other faith backgrounds all participated, and the usual divisions that often separate believers seemed completely irrelevant. It was simply a group of people, deeply moved, coming together to remember and honor the sacrifice they had just portrayed. Jonathan Roumie has described this communion as one of the most spiritually significant moments of his life. Exhausted from filming and still processing the day's emotional weight, he found himself surrounded by people who had shared something sacred with him. The bread and wine they shared were more than symbolic. They felt connected to the reality of Jesus' sacrifice and the meaning of the crucifixion itself. Multiple crew members later admitted they felt God's presence tangibly in that moment. Skeptics softened in their doubt, and believers felt their faith deepen. It wasn't a performance or a contrived experience. It happened organically, powerfully, and collectively. The communion also served as a form of emotional and spiritual healing, helping everyone process the trauma and intensity of the day. Jenkins has said he didn't plan for this to happen, but witnessing it reaffirmed that The Chosen is more than a creative project. It is a ministry, a way of pointing people toward God, and a reminder that the story they were telling was touching lives in ways far beyond the screen. Jonathan Roumie's private wrestle with God. In the days and weeks following the filming of the Crucifixion, Jonathan Roumie has spoken openly about experiencing a period of intense spiritual struggle. The depth of what he had just portrayed, the suffering and death of Jesus, opened questions and emotions that he needed to process. He has described feeling something akin to post-traumatic stress, a psychological and spiritual weight stemming from fully immersing himself in the agony and significance of the moment. For Roumie, this wasn't acting in the traditional sense. He had allowed himself to encounter, in a small way, the reality of Christ's suffering. The experience forced him to confront profound questions. What does it mean to embody this story? How does one bear the responsibility of representing the death of Jesus for millions of viewers, some of whom may be encountering the gospel for the first time? These weren't abstract theological queries. They were deeply personal, arising from an encounter that was both holy and overwhelming. Roumie has always been candid about his faith journey, including the doubts, struggles, and imperfections that have shaped him. Playing Jesus has not elevated him spiritually or given him a sense of moral superiority. Instead, it has humbled him. He's become more aware of his own flaws and need for grace.
You must know something. I do believe that Jesus is most likely the Messiah.
I have a lot more to learn about him. It's a lifelong journey, you know.
And this awareness has deepened his faith, making it more tangible and less theoretical. Following the Crucifixion filming, he spent significant time in prayer and reflection, wrestling with what God was asking of him through the role, and praying that his performance would not distract from the story itself, but rather allow Jesus to be seen clearly. Friends and colleagues have noticed subtle but profound changes in him. He is more contemplative, more present, and more joyful. The experience stripped away pretense and clarified his purpose. This work is not about fame or career advancement, but about serving a story that has the power to transform lives, including his own. The ripple effect beyond the set. The impact of filming the crucifixion scenes on The Chosen extended far beyond the set in Texas. As the episodes featuring these powerful moments were released, the response from viewers was profound and widespread. Millions reported being moved to tears, experiencing spiritual breakthroughs, and reconsidering their relationship with God. Comments on social media and episode discussion boards overflowed with personal testimonies of how the crucifixion scenes had touched people in ways traditional preaching sometimes cannot. Some viewers who hadn't set foot in a church for years felt compelled to return, while others who had never seriously explored Christianity found themselves drawn to learn more about Jesus. The combination of emotional honesty, theological care, and immersive storytelling created a rare opportunity for people to see the gospel story rather than just hear it, allowing the weight and significance of the crucifixion to reach them on a deeply personal level. The influence of these episodes has been felt globally, crossing cultural, religious, and linguistic boundaries. Muslims, Jewish viewers, and even atheists and agnostics have shared how the depiction of Christ's suffering resonated with them in unexpected ways, proving that the story has a universal emotional and spiritual pull. Mental health professionals have noted that some clients have even used The Chosen to process grief, trauma, and personal hardship, finding solace in the idea that Jesus endured suffering he fully understands. Dallas Jenkins regularly receives messages from viewers sharing experiences of spiritual awakenings, restored relationships, and renewed faith, and the volume of these messages surged after the Crucifixion episodes aired. For the cast, and especially Jonathan Roumie, these responses have been humbling and affirming. Knowing that the depth of emotional and spiritual energy he poured into the role has helped millions encounter God's love brings a profound sense of purpose, making the challenges of filming entirely worthwhile. Dallas Jenkins, carrying the burden of sacred storytelling. Dallas Jenkins never set out to create the most crowd-funded series in history or to reach hundreds of millions of viewers worldwide. He began as a filmmaker who had faced significant professional disappointments, searching for a project that would feel meaningful and purposeful. The Chosen started modestly, with a Christmas short film that unexpectedly resonated with audiences, sparking something far bigger than Jenkins could have anticipated. Yet, with that growth came immense responsibility and pressure. Jenkins has been candid about the weight he carries as the creator and director of a series portraying the life of Christ. He is not a pastor or theologian, he is a storyteller, and yet he has been entrusted with presenting one of the most consequential stories in human history to a global audience. The gravity of that responsibility has caused him to approach his work.
It's been the most exhausting, the most difficult, the most refining thing I've ever done, but it's been painful. And I think that's how God wants it. I think he wants us to give a bit of a sacrifice to portray his ultimate sacrifice.
With fear, reverence, and a profound sense of duty, especially when it came to filming the Crucifixion, which he knew would be the most critical and challenging sequence of the entire series. Directing the Crucifixion pushed Jenkins to balance the practical demands of filmmaking with the spiritual weight of the content in ways he had never experienced before. He wrestled with how to depict the death of Jesus honestly, honoring both historical reality and theological significance while creating a scene emotionally compelling yet not gratuitously violent. Every decision, from camera angles to pacing to performances, was weighed carefully, often keeping him awake at night. Watching Jonathan Roumie endure the physical and emotional demands of portraying Jesus was particularly difficult, as their friendship made the actor's pain feel deeply personal. Jenkins also carried the responsibility of caring for the emotional well-being of the entire cast and crew, providing chaplains on set, encouraging breaks, and allowing anyone to step away when the intensity became overwhelming. After filming concluded, he spent time personally checking in with everyone, ensuring they were processing their experiences healthily. For Jenkins, directing The Chosen is more than a professional endeavor. It is ministry, a sacred collaboration that requires tending not only to the story, but to the people who bring it to life. Theological depth in creative choices. One of the defining aspects of The Chosen that sets it apart from many biblical adaptations is its deep theological thoughtfulness. Dallas Jenkins works closely with a team of consultants from diverse Christian traditions to ensure that the series remains faithful to Scripture while also being dramatically compelling. This careful approach is especially evident in the crucifixion scenes, where every detail matters and every word carries immense weight. Decisions about which of Jesus' 7 last words to include, such as "Father, forgive them," "Today you will be with me in paradise," and "It is finished," were made with profound consideration, understanding the theological significance behind each. Similarly, the portrayals of those surrounding the cross received meticulous attention. Mary witnessing her son's suffering, John attempting to support her while grappling with his own grief, the Roman soldiers carrying out their duty, largely unaware of the cosmic implications, and the religious leaders whose reactions ranged from satisfaction to the first inklings of doubt. Each reaction contributes to the larger narrative, showing how deeply intertwined the personal and divine aspects of the moment truly are. Equally significant is the show's deliberate restraint in depicting the crucifixion itself. The Chosen chooses not to show the actual nailing of Jesus to the cross, not out of avoidance or censorship, but as a conscious theological and dramatic decision. By beginning with Jesus already on the cross, the focus shifts to his words, his interactions, and the responses of those around him, rather than on graphic violence. This restraint often makes the scene even more powerful for viewers as the imagination fills in what isn't shown, creating a visceral understanding of the suffering without glorifying the brutality. The spiritual and relational dynamics remain at the forefront, reinforcing the gravity of the moment. Moreover, the crucifixion is always understood in light of the resurrection, which completes the theological arc of hope and redemption. The darkness of Good Friday carries meaning only because of Easter Sunday, and while the crucifixion episode ends in grief, the knowledge of hope on the horizon provides comfort, reminding viewers that the story of Jesus' death is inseparable from the promise of new life. Looking forward, Seasons 6 and 7. The Chosen is designed to unfold over 7 seasons, guiding viewers through the full scope of Jesus' ministry, his death, and ultimately, his resurrection. Seasons 6 and 7 will focus on the events leading up to and following the crucifixion, including the resurrection appearances and the formation of the early church. For the cast and crew, particularly Jonathan Roumie, this means there is still a significant emotional journey ahead. While the crucifixion demanded profound vulnerability and endurance, the resurrection presents a different challenge, capturing the wonder, joy, and world-changing significance of what happened next. The production team is already considering how to depict the disciples' transformation, from confusion to understanding, from fear to bold faith, while balancing dramatic storytelling with theological fidelity. Roumie approaches these upcoming scenes with a mix of anticipation and a healthy sense of nervousness, aware that portraying Jesus through the resurrection and ascension will require him to explore new emotional and spiritual depths. Yet he trusts the process, Dallas Jenkins' vision, and ultimately that God will guide each scene and moment. The impact of The Chosen continues to expand with every new season. The crucifixion scene, despite its emotional weight, has become one of the most shared and discussed moments in the series, widely shown in churches, shared online, and used as a tool for evangelism and discipleship. Dallas Jenkins emphasizes that the show is not intended to replace scripture, but to offer a creative, dramatized exploration of the biblical narrative based on the true story of Jesus, rather than a word-for-word adaptation. This freedom allows the series to breathe life into the characters, adding depth and backstory that help modern audiences relate to ancient events. Future seasons will continue this approach, highlighting both monumental moments and quieter, intimate scenes. The relationships between disciples, conversations with Jesus, and the humanity of everyone involved. By treating biblical figures as real people rather than distant icons, The Chosen maintains a delicate balance between dramatic engagement and spiritual reverence, ensuring the story resonates emotionally, intellectually, and spiritually with viewers around the world. On a Texas film set, something profound occurred. Jonathan Roumie didn't just portray the crucifixion, he experienced it in ways that moved everyone present. What began as a television production became a spiritual encounter that would later touch millions of viewers worldwide, proving that some stories transcend the screen. If you enjoyed this video, don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit the notification bell for more untold stories like this one.